Welcome to the Sisterhood. Here, every new face feels like a friend, every laugh like a shared secret, and every moment like the beginning of something unforgettable. This is where college memories are made and friendships are forever.
I thought that it would be a great way to get to know older girls, and also just to have planned events, get a little bit involved with the community through like philanthropy, and yeah, just get to know people, have events planned for the weekends, and also just become friends, I think, with older people.
I think seeing on Instagram all the girls together and everyone's smiling, and I knew a bunch of girls that were very happy in their stories.
To meet a lot of really great people, and even the houses that I didn't end up rushing or going, I'm still friends with a lot of the girls that interviewed me, or I guess like rushed me.
It's hard not to get swept up by the excitement from the first moment. Sorority life seems to promise friendship, purpose, and community like nowhere else. For many, joining a sorority is about finding a second family, a family that cares, supports, and uplifts. There's a side to sorority life that's harder to see, a side shaped by expectations, expenses, and sometimes by compromise. From clothing to social media, the pressure to present a perfect image grows. As the excitement fades, for some, the pressure begins to mount, when friendships turn into comparisons, when social events become obligations, and when fitting in becomes a mask. The cracks start to show. Today, we are peeling back the layers of this world to uncover the other side, the side hidden behind the smiles and Instagram posts. The side where reality meets expectations, and where sisterhood meets sacrifice. Welcome to UOK UVA, a student-produced podcast about mental health and wellness at the University of Virginia. I'm your host, Paola, and in this episode, I'm going to explore some of the negative experiences that students in Greek life could potentially face. While not every experience is universal, we want to highlight some of the very realistic issues that come with being in a sorority. We're going to spend some time together getting to know a fourth-year student at UVA, who we will refer to as Skylar for privacy reasons. She was a member of a sorority here on grounds which shall remain unnamed. When people think about the negative aspects of Greek life, they normally think about alcohol or party culture, but that is unfortunately not all that can go wrong. By following Skylar's story, we hope to shed light on some of the other issues of Greek life that are less talked about. Although Skylar's sorority experience began through an abnormal Zoom recruitment process due to the pandemic, Skylar was still optimistic about the opportunities being in a sorority would provide her with. Skylar's sorority experience started with the same excitement and hope as any other girl joining a sorority. Throughout her recruitment process, also known as Rush, Skylar quickly noticed that some of the sororities may not be a good fit for her. She noticed that some sororities were very focused on how much money she had.
The first question I got asked was like, oh, like, what did you do over break? And like the kind of demeanor like shifted a little bit when I was like, oh, it's just at like home, and then I like visited some friends. Like it was not, I didn't go like to Europe, or like I didn't take an international vacation.
Throughout the nation, many sororities prioritize recruiting girls with a high income background. This creates a pressure during Rush to dress to impress, and a fear that the failure to dress rich will leave you without a bid. This also leads to a lot of girls filming the Rush process and daily outfit reveals.
My shirt's from Bama, my skirt's from Lulu,
dress is from home,
my shoes, my bag is from
little girl bangles, little beaded bracelets that I have. This bracelet's Kinder Scott, and my shoes are Tiva's. So excited! Here she is.
Fortunately for Skylar, this pressure was not a huge factor for her.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm like very lucky and privileged that it wasn't a huge financial burden for me. Like my parents were willing to pay for it, so that I could kind of like get that social experience.
As her rush process was conducted through Zoom, she was able to receive a bid from a sorority where she confidently felt that she was going to belong. After receiving her bid, Skylar was happy to be a part of a new group and was grateful to receive a loving big immediately after joining. Skylar enjoyed her first semester in her sorority, but that honeymoon phase of that relationship between her and her sorority died shortly after.
I'm seeing all of you guys who are like, a lot of you are like planning to live together next year, or like you're going on spring break together, or like you're doing like all of these things, and it's like weird to know that those plans are being made, to like hear about those things, but like never be included in them.
Some girls will inevitably be closer than others, and friend groups are destined to form, but she never thought that it would have been so quick or so evident. She constantly felt excluded and felt that these cliques formed faster than she could have ever imagined.
I don't know, I feel like by a couple weeks in, cliques had kind of formed, and I wasn't part of one of them, and I think that just continued throughout the rest of my experience.
After feeling like this for so long, and seeing all the other girls from a distance, she could only wonder if things turned out this way because of her.
Or I don't understand, especially why no one likes me, or wants to be my friend, or wants to talk to me.
She reflected on this isolation and self-doubt, sharing how hard it was for her to accept that maybe she was never meant to fit into these cliques. After a year of ups and downs in her sorority, it was now Skylar's turn to recruit new members. She was recently elected as a new house manager for the upcoming school year, and she was hopeful to meet new girls and bring them in as well. However, these feelings quickly changed as Rush, from the recruiter standpoint, was far different from being recruited.
Being a recruiter was not good. I'll just say that. I really didn't enjoy it. And I don't necessarily completely agree with the ways always did it. There was just kind of a lack of transparency in that process.
Skylar's sorority was very picky about who they had speaking to potential new members. Her sorority decided that Skylar was not a good face for the sorority and should not be actively speaking to potential new members.
I don't know, I don't think it, like, makes you feel very good about yourself, and you're wondering, oh, like, why do they not want me to be the kind of face of recruitment, or meeting these girls, why does no one want to recommend me to talk to other people?
Skylar began to question her self-worth and began to feel as though she was not good enough. Not only did Skylar disagree with how her sorority would hide certain faces from potential new members, she also disagreed with the way her sorority went about selecting girls. She left her last day of Rush emotionally exhausted, and as she walked home, all she could think about was wanting to drop. Luckily, she ran into an older member and broke down, sobbing into her friend's arms.
I'm, like, walking back from the house to my apartment, and, like, down the corner, full, like, sobbing, because I felt, again, it was just those feelings of, like, I don't understand what's wrong with me. And, like, another girl who, she wasn't recruiting, but was in the sorority, and is, like, one of those people that is the reason that I stayed, but she graduated, like, happened to bump into me, like, full sobbing, walking down the corner, and took me into 1515, and we just kind of, like, talked, and I think, yeah, it was me and all the girlies who had been dropped by sororities who didn't want crying down in the basement of 1515, so that was definitely a humbling experience.
Recruitment heavily shifted Skylar's attitude towards her sorority, and it really began to take a toll on her mental health. She mentioned how the mental shift ended up bleeding into her academics and personal life.
I'm kind of like someone who, like, shuts down, I guess, when things get too, like, I'll try to avoid, and I'll just kind of, like, shut down and, like, didn't talk to, I think, like, anyone for, like, 3 or 4 days. Get most of my classes, like, I just, like, don't want to exist right now. Like, I don't want to, like, have to think about this, have to work through this.
Skylar neglected both her studies and her responsibilities as house manager. She acknowledged how unhealthy it was for her and the rest of the executive board.
Yeah, it was basically, like, I just, like, stopped, like, responding to things. Like, I was just, like, wouldn't do it. Because, like, I don't know, and it's, like, that was definitely not the best way to kind of, like, handle things. And I probably ended up, like, causing a lot of, like, work for other people, which, like, now I'm, like, that was a really stupid thing to do.
By putting so much external pressure on herself, she only further trapped herself into this cycle. It got to the point where every responsibility to her sorority turned into a chore, rather than something she really wanted to do.
I think it just like turned everything into like a really like emotionally taxing thing when I like absolutely like was not that serious and should not have been. So yeah.
After listening to the story, we can only wonder why Skylar or anyone would want to stay in this situation for so long.
Well, because I like signed a contract to live in the house, and so I like didn't have housing for the next year. So like if I had dropped, like I actually didn't know where I would have like lived, and I probably still would have had to pay all that money. So I was like, to me, it's like whatever, I'll just stay and like hope it gets better. But honestly, it was really just because I was like, oh, I've already committed to living in the house, and I like can't get out of it or like know where I would live otherwise.
Even though she stepped down from her position as house manager, she still couldn't escape living in the house. Due to contracts and finances, she was still trapped in her sorority. And she emphasized that without these circumstances, she would have dropped during recruitment in her second year. When asked if she thought if this was a shared experience with other girls, she responded.
So I've heard like some things about like other people wanting to drop but not really being able to. I guess like that not being able to, I think is what I've heard. Like there's a lot of kind of different reasons for.
Although the reasons may vary, it's interesting to think that this isn't a unique or singular experience. Her experience living in the house was not particularly good or bad, but she knew before moving in that she really did not want to be there anymore. So dropping in her fourth year was an easy decision.
In some ways, I was kind of like, it felt like dropping was kind of reflected my experience where I just like texted our president. I was like, hey, like I want to drop, and she's like, okay, that's like kind of it. And so I was just like, yeah, that feels about appropriate. Like it wasn't like I didn't like have to really like fill anything out or like do anything. It was just like, oh, that's done.
Although dropping may have been less traumatic than she painted it to be in her mind, it was still a huge weight lifted off her shoulders.
I like saw a notification for like the app that we use to communicate, and I was like, oh, like I don't know, I just had like a different kind of like feeling to it, which is like, oh, I like really don't care anymore. In a way that kind of felt a little like freeing, as stupid as it is. Like it's literally like a sorority, like why do you care this much? But to not have, I guess, some of that kind of like emotional burden and emotional weight was, it was different, and it was a little surprising. And so I feel like for it to not have been like a super big heavy process, because I think I kind of hyped it up in my mind that it was going to be like something a little bit more involved or intense, and just something that I was like, oh, I'm like, I guess, stressing myself out over. And then it turned out it was like literally not serious at all. And I feel like, again, that just kind of reflects like so much of what being a sorority like ended up being. It was like me getting really like stressed and nervous and just like anxious over things that didn't need to be a big deal.
By Skylar's fourth year, she had moved out of the house and moved in with some close first-year friends. She continued to be incredibly involved in the community through the university judiciary community, guides, moot court, and much more. As she takes time to reflect on her time in a sorority, she wishes to share some advice and words of wisdom for those who are struggling in their own sororities.
I think it's just to remind yourself that like even though you feel alone, you're like not alone. Like I saw was able to like talk through it with her and get her kind of like help, and I wish I had done that more with people and been able to kind of like just process it in a way, because like even though again you feel alone, you aren't.
Greek life is such a prominent activity within colleges around the United States. While social media portrays Greek life with smiles, joy, and laughter, it is important to recognize that not everyone will have such a positive experience with Greek life, and that's okay. Skylar shared one last bit of advice for girls who may be looking to join a sorority.
I don't want this to be like a story of like you should never join Greek life, it's awful, it shouldn't exist. But I think it's like really important that the only portrayals of Greek life aren't like what you see on social media and the kind of like positive experiences that are all like happy-go-lucky, everything is amazing at all times are. And so I think it's like just important that you're making an informed decision, both in like kind of like what being in Greek life actually is, but also just like the fact that you're gonna potentially have like different experiences, and what you're actually like potentially going to get out of it, what you're going to have to like put into it. And so I, again, like don't want this to be like a Greek life is awful. Like so many things in life, it's not perfect. It's not always going to be amazing. And so for some people it might be, but for a lot of people it's not going to be. And so to kind of like just take that into consideration. And if you're going to go through recruitment, I hope you have a great time and end up somewhere that you love and you end up finding a great group of girls that you really connect with. But if your experience isn't that, if you don't get in the sorority you want, if you end up being in a sorority you want and hating it, or like anything in between, just know that it's okay. Like you're not the only one who's gone through that. And I think as long as you kind of go into the experience knowing that that's a possibility and being prepared for that possibility, like you'll be okay. You'll get through it.
For those of you who may find that Greek life isn't for you after all, it's important to remember that at the end of the day, you are so much more than a sorority. You can and will continue to do great things in your life, even without an association of Greek letters. This podcast was produced by Jasmine Wang, Paola Quiroga, Imran Khalid, and Tucker Mullen, as part of a collaborative project for Professor Steph Sarasso's Writing with Sound class at the University of Virginia. A full list of audio and textual sources used in the production of this podcast can be found in the transcription associated with the episode. Thank you for listening.